Hi Jana, hi Rose.
Hi.
G'day. Well, I'm Craig, and I'm a consultant working with my own company, Iris & Co. But obviously, Jana, you know I used to work at Central Hawke's Bay District Council, and I've worked with you for a few years now on promoting Central Hawke's Bay and promoting the museum. So it's really great to be here today and talk about what we're up to with developing this feasibility assessment for the Central Hawke's Bay Museum.
Kia ora, thank you, Greg. My name is Jana Ohlirova. I am been the curator manager of the Central Hawke's Bay Museum for 12 years now. So it is great to get to this point where we are today to open another era for what we could achieve here at the museum. So in the past we were working with the museum team and the community to make this museum more accessible for our community, more usable, and so we get the exposure, we get access to our collection, to the local history. Recently, we just got a Gwen Malden Trust to be able to remove our entry fee, which made this facility even more accessible, and we got a lot of more visitors. But it also shows that there is a huge potential to go into the future. And that's why I'm so excited to have Rose here to help us and navigate us what the future could look like.
Thanks, Jana. And Rose, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, I'm Rose Evans. I'm from Object Lab, and which is a business which covers not only conservation, but it also looks at exhibition development and also feasibilities with which I'm working with for you on. And so I'm going to first of all look through your collection, see their significance from a community perspective, but then also see how they could be reconfigured within the building in a manner which we would place in museum standards, you know, like benchmark museum standards.
Yes.
Because I'm looking at the spaces now and thinking, you know, perhaps I'm juggling around different spaces and thinking this might be better, that might be better. I'm looking at your displays and how you've exhibited your collections, and basically at the end of my report to Craig, I'll give a number of different options so that you can. It's not a tidy decision or solution. It's looking at a number of different solutions, and that would improve your storage, your display areas, and then fit that in with Craig. Would that be right to try and work out what is more accessible to the public when they come in? Yeah.
That's right. So thanks, Rose. So we were given, the museum rather, applied for funding to the Lotteries, Environment and Heritage Fund for a feasibility study, and they were successful in that. So you and I put together that proposal to help the museum understand how better to preserve and promote their collection. But then the feasibility study will also look at the wider context of the role of the museum in the township and the district, its relationship to other heritage institutions or heritage organisations, such as Onga, such as Porongaho and its Māori community there, and Ngā Ara Tipuna, the new project around pre-colonial past sites in Waipukaro and Takapau. So really what we're doing, Rose, is with your very technical lens and all the knowledge that you've got around your working with different museums throughout Aotearoa, and my knowledge of how to then package that up to funders and make the case for funding. Together we'll be able to present to Jana something really powerful for her to advocate to funders to better protect and promote, protect the collection and promote the museum.
Yeah, no, that was much more articulate. Thanks for that.
Well, that's why we're a team, Rose. So Rose, why don't you tell us about your experience, because you've got a long and storied history of working in cultural institutions in New Zealand, both large and small, and that'd be just interesting, I suppose, for people who are watching to understand that range of experience you've got.
Well, I often go to large and small institutions nationally, and also cultural centres. So I work in with the iwi hapu as well, and we look at what do they need. Okay, so it's not about providing the same solution to each person, to each institution, that is. So it's answering what you require. Yeah. And so some of those places are okay, let's think. I've just finished working on the exhibition development for Motuti, which is a cultural centre up in Pangaru. And then, at the same time as that, I've worked on, let me think, O'Kane's Bay, working out what they may require into the future with their fantastic collections that they have down there, but they have very little storage area, so trying to look within the same footprint and try and develop a place that's far more accessible to the public and engaging, so it gets more visitation, but as well as encapsulating a lot of storage. So you get all of these, everything is different and it's all tailored to what's required to, and it's not just about the collections, it's also about who comes and visits and what are they interested in seeing. So let's think about where else. Very recently I was in it's gone. Sorry, I'm going to have to think about it. Gisborne Museum. Tairāwhiti, yeah. Tairāwhiti Museum. Sorry about that. And that's really interesting because that's a conglomeration of maybe 3 to 4 different eras in its building structure. So it has to deal with all sorts of air conditioning systems. It has multiple areas for storage. And so they and display areas are all on different levels. So I had to look at that and come up with solutions for what was a good visitor journey through that. Where are the galleries? Are they the right sizes? And are they providing what they need to for the iwi hapu in that area? And then at the same time as that, are there storage areas accessible? And are some of them needing to be accessible and others not needing to be accessible? So as well as there's all that process of getting collections in and getting collections out, and what you accept in a collection, what you don't accept in a collection. I probably talked too long.
No, that's good. So thanks, Rose. Jana, you've had some time with Rose. This morning we had some time with Rose. Why don't you tell us what your vision for, what are you expecting to get out of this process, and what's your vision ultimately for the museum and its role in the community?
So as I mentioned before, because of my quite a long time being here, I do experience how this museum operates and what are the needs of it to improve, but also the endless opportunities of this place with its community. So I see it based on a very strong bond with the community and for the being for the community. So it's like the focus is preserving the heritage by making it accessible to the local people, and especially like for children. So that's sort of how I see it. I see a huge potential. This place could be like I call it like the heritage hub for the whole Central Hawke's Bay, as you were talking about all these other points like Takapau, Onga Onga, Otana, there is so many little places, societies, art groups, which it would be really nice to have a center where we can all meet and we could offer the space as well and the expertise maybe, but I know we have quite a few issues regarding our building, our own storage, and dealing with a historical building as the Bank of New Zealand is category 2. It's not always easy. So I really am looking forward to see your opinion and waiting for the expertise to see which way we could go forward, because I am a strong believer this place can grow and offer more to our community.
I think it can too. I think it's really exciting collections, and all sorts of different ways of telling their stories.
Yes.
Yeah. But also storing their collections as well.
So Rose, you've had some time this morning looking around, and we've got the rest of today and some of tomorrow as well. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, and but I'm just going to ask, like, what are some of your first impressions about things that are positive, and perhaps just some things that you're starting to see that through our process we could start to look at to help Yana and the team to better preserve and promote the collection and the museum. What are some of your first impressions?
Well, from the collection perspective, you've got a lot of collection, and there's a lot of really interesting pieces that are family owned, that have been in the area. So that's a positive, isn't it? A lot of stories that aren't told at the moment, and that's great. But there are quite a lot of them, and so I think maybe trying to work out which stories you need to tell. On top of that, I'm thinking, well, am I going to be a little bit negative, perhaps, or no? Maybe I should stay positive.
Don't think about it as negative. I think just what are the challenges and opportunities we're going to be working through.
Yeah. Well, the challenge in this instance is that when trying to understand who your visitors are. And who are they? And are they locals? Are they travellers that come through? What ages are they? What do they like to see? And then is what you've got at the moment doing its job? I'd probably say it isn't, because there's not a lot of space to do a lot of the different tasks that are required these days in museums, like even from research and archives or resource areas, there isn't that space. And that's a really rich area to mingle those generations and to grow that youth audience. I think there's not a lot of interactivity with the collections as well.
Because of that space challenge, mainly. Because most of it has to be on display, because there's not a lot of back of house, so there's not that room to kind of, spread your wings and have... We're looking at those knuckle bones earlier, and we're saying, wouldn't it be great if there was an opportunity for kids to actually try the knuckle bones and actually be a bit more tactile, and thinking about all of those kind of senses that kids like to have. So it's not that for want of trying, I think, for Yana, it's just more that how do we create the space that enables that interactivity to happen in a richer way. In a richer way.
Because it's you've got to go to a museum and think, wow, this is exciting. I've never tried that before. And is that how they lived then, or is that the future? Because it's not all about the past, is it?
No.
It's about asking questions of the future. And growing your youth audience, because they're going to be they get older and then they keep coming back. But on top of that, you've got no real storage space, and the storage space you do have is up quite a steep steps, which are maybe potentially a health and safety challenge. So there are some issues, that you can't really bypass. So it's about reconfiguring this. It's a big challenge.
I think, thanks Rose, I think you've alluded to a big opportunity around youth. So one of the major things I think that's happened in the last couple of years is that the New Zealand history curriculum has changed, and now there's more emphasis on early colonial life or even pre-colonial Māori heritage and history. And what's going to happen is that the young people, who are 5, 6, 7 now, are going to be, I think, more sophisticated. They're going to be more learned and more sophisticated in their understanding of New Zealand history, and will be able to balance the nuance of those stories. And so in about a generation or a half, people who are coming through this museum will be more educated around New Zealand history and will be ready to have some of those more nuanced conversations about the role of colonial history and pre-colonial history. And so your museum is well placed now to understand its role in supporting the New Zealand history curriculum and supporting Waipawa School or Otane or what are the different schools. So I think we need to, when you're talking about what the future, I think it is about being brave enough to have some of those conversations in this place, in this whare, about pre-colonial, colonial life. It's really exciting, I think.
It is. It's really exciting. Got to take a few risks.
Yeah, what do you think, Jana?
I'm ready for it. I, of course, have learned that the conflicts are present and it's no point to hide all the time, as I experience. So, of course, I can see it's challenging, but at least we can try and see. I'm always positive about the future and not afraid of change.
Excellent.
But really happy to hear your opinions, because it's always good to have someone with a professional background
and an outsider
as well.
Because you've seen a lot of museums throughout New Zealand, Rose, and you've seen them how they'll do things well and how they can do things better, and I think that's what you're going to be bringing to this process is helping Jana to cherry pick the best and what's right for this institution. But Jana, you've got extensive experience, not just you're 12 years here, but you've worked in the industry for a long time, and you are experienced and educated and qualified. So don't be afraid to kind of push back on us as well, because we can learn from you.
Okay.
And you know who comes in, you know what their tastes are.
It's interesting to sort of, like, as you mentioned about your audience, and I am aware of that. Probably not most of our audience, of course, belongs to the older generation who comes through the museum and triggers memory to remember, which, as we talk, it's really hard for children. They don't see anything familiar on the static displays. So that's why it's important to provide more interactive experience for the children to actually be engaged in the history as well, not just like the older generation who can still remember, but for the kids we need to find a way how, introduce the history in the way that they will think like, oh my God, it's more exciting than being on phone or something like this, I know that's a probably big challenge. But, if you think about it like this, it's also sort of really exciting for our side, to think and think like, I can beat these phones, these games, because we have something more to offer. So that's my point of it. That sort of like engaging the younger generation.
And I think it's interesting that we're in here in this exhibition, sitting in here with the old hospital exhibition, because that this exhibition was a part of Waipukaro or Central Hawke's Bay's history, and there was this abandoned site. But now my understanding, it's been cleared, and it's part of the future, because Council, in partnership with other agencies, has purchased that land, and my understanding is that there's consented for about 90 new houses. I could be wrong but certainly a significant amount of new houses. So you think that's the growth of Central Hawke's Bay. This derelict building is the past, but the future are all these new people who are going to be moving here, or perhaps they're young people who are coming back. So the population growth of Central Hawke's Bay is going to be exponential over the next 10 to 20 years, and things like cultural institutions like museums and our heritage are going to be even more important. So again, not only with that opportunity around the New Zealand history curriculum, but just the sheer amount of people coming into the region wanting to connect and engage with their heritage, or perhaps it's a heritage that they're learning about. You've got a huge opportunity to repurpose or represent what you do to a new audience.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Very well done.
And they may have different expectations as well, mightn't
Absolutely,
they? They might be coming back or coming here with quite different expectations of a museum, you know, as
Yeah.
being a sort of, like you say, a central hub.
Yeah.
And so
yeah,
there's a
yes,
lot
yeah.
more, there are different tasks in there. You know,
Events
different
or
events and-
you know, or interactivity, or how do I become involved, you know, and we're talking
Yeah.
about the volunteers before,
Yeah.
and you know, you're losing a lot of volunteers, but there's an opportunity now with younger volunteers perhaps. Yeah, so yeah, it'll all change.
Yeah, and also like I just recently been looking into a few new perspective, especially after we went through our disaster events with the Cyclone Gabrielle and
Terrible.
lockdown, and then when you are looking after the community, what these cultural places like art galleries and museums can actually offer to the community in regards of their well-being. So now it's the discussion how you actually measure, you know, not only how many people you get through the doors, but also what's the emotional reaction and how they feel about visiting these places, you know, and finding, you know, if they belong, or so just sort of make a sense of them as a spiritual being in the community, in the world we are. And I believe that museums have this potential to actually be kind of like almost like, you know, like you go to the doctor and you got a prescription for you know, pills, and now you go to the doctor and you got prescription and you have to go to visit a museum.
yeah, you
Because
know.
it will help you with your health, you know, well-being.
A cultural prescription.
Yeah.
And it sort of turns into what we call repeat visitation. You know, you just don't go once, you go lots of times, and because it's a habit formed. And so, because you enjoy yourself,
Yes.
you have a good
Yes,
experience
yeah,
here.
yeah.
And so the whole word museums has a sort of negative connotation these days, and I think we need to sort of change that around a bit.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But it's right, it's like
Old-fashioned.
yeah, old-fashioned, because everything is, you know, when you think about museums, you can't touch anything, everything is static, and you are
Dusty.
almost scared, you know,
Yes.
to even move. So I think even like change, and it's another change, isn't it? Like we just recently changed the name of our museum from being Settlers Museum to we dropped the name Settlers to be more engaging with our community and embracing the different cultures in our community as well, and make it more open and accessible. So
That's great.
We are opening
It's good, you might even change it
another chapter.
again.
Well, yes.
Oh. Controversy.
Well, you know, it's all open,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, so Rose and I will spend the next couple of days here, and then we'll undertake this assessment. And so our assessment is independent. It's kind of from outside looking in, and we'll come with a report that says here's some different things you might need to think about, but it's non-binding, Yana. So we want you and your community to know that we're not kind of, you know, judge, jury, and executioner sitting here going, you must do that. We just kind of work with you and say, look, this is from our perspective. What are some opportunities? What are some challenges you might need to look at? And then it presents a report for you to continue the conversation with your board, with your council, with your community, and ultimately with funders who might fund some of these changes.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.